crazy, insane. But hey, here we are and we made it. So
Awesome. Hey, if I live stream some of your thing, do you care?
me?
Yeah.
Oh my God, no.
Oh,
Go for it.
I might. We were live streaming from pre-setup. Nobody's seen everything here yet. Okay, so Toolman Tim's here to talk to us about actually doing what you need to do, basically. So I thought this would be a good kickoff to the event because a lot of us have ideas and we talk about ideas. And we talk about ideas. And we talk about ideas. And we talk to Angel about ideas. And then she's sad next year when she sees us and we did not do any of our ideas. So he's going to talk to us about whatever Tim wants to talk about, really.
Whatever.
Whatever.
You guys got to listen to me for 45. Well,
Yeah.
what do we got? An hour, right?
You got an hour.
I'll keep it to 45 minutes. That way you don't hate me. So overpromise and underdeliver, or underdeliver and overpromise. Which one is it, John? I can't remember. Yeah. Anyway, so how is everybody? Good. Hey, right on. Yeah. So like I said, I'm Tim. You can call me Tim. Tim Cook, Toolman Tim, whatever. You can find me online for those who don't know at the workshop. I got a podcast and a YouTube channel. My big shtick is entrepreneurship and something I like to call preparedness, which is the short version of it is the art of home maintenance when help isn't around the corner. Basically, self-reliance in taking care of your bug-in location. So I'm a prepper, I'm a handyman, I'm a husband to a beautiful wife, I have 5 kids, and unfortunately we're also Canadian. So I apologize now, and I'll probably apologize 16 times because that's what us Canadians do. And then we'll get it right out of the way because I'm sure at some point while I'm talking, you're going to hear no do to boot it or out and about. So I've lived on the Canadian prairies for almost 10 years now, and so I've kind of slacked back on that East Coast accent, but if you put me around someone from there, in 10 minutes, you won't even understand me. So I still constantly have to remind myself to slow the hell down, Tim, because people from out there, we talk, we know each other, but if you got that slang going and you get the out and about and the no do to boot it, you know all about it, right? And, hey bud, get me a beer. We're like a mix between Wisconsin, Minnesota, and you know how it is, and whatever the hell Canadian accent is. So anyway, we are going to talk about, the title of my presentation is You Can Do It. Finding Freedom Through Entrepreneurship. And I got to fill you in on my backstory, tell you a little bit about where I came from, because I want you to know what I've done, how rough of a trip it was for us, and how much success we're having now, and how it can work for you guys too. So I want to take you back to the glorious times. Anybody remember the 90s? I'm sure everybody's younger than me. There we go. Good. Yes. Okay. And there was a lot of cinematic masterpieces back then, right? And there was one actor, if you remember, that was into it all the time. I never won an Oscar yet, but you guys know Adam Sandler? Yeah, absolute thespian, right? So, and he did, pretty much all he did was show up and tell the same story with a different character, same character, but a different name. And he always had his friends in the background, right? There's always these supporting characters that are always there. And one of his buddies he's always there, and he's in the background, Rob Schneider, and he's always saying, you can do it. You can do it. He's an absolute idiot, but he's always there hollering, right? So that's what this is about. I want to be there, and I want to be pushing on to you guys that if you're thinking about launching some sort of entrepreneurial venture, if you're looking at building freedom, I want to be Rob Schneider hollering at you, telling you can do it. And I got lucky enough to be the first person to open up the Lftn workshop for a presentation. So I figured, hey, I might as well get you guys all riled up and excited, and I'll be your cheerleader for the next, what do we got, 3 days, 2.5 days? I got 4 more days of freedom south of the border, and then we got to go back to beautiful old Canada. So anyway, from there, when we're working for ourselves, right? We're working for the man. Everybody, you're going to work 9 to 5 every day. Our identity's tied up in just that. We don't even realize maybe that there's more to life because that's all we've ever done. You meet somebody new, what's the first thing they say? Beautiful weather, right? Then the next thing, what do you do, right? What do you do? And for me, I sold building supplies. I was into sales. I did it for a lot of years. And I was so blind to doing sales and working in building supplies and I was so miserable that I didn't even know that I was miserable. And I'm not saying that's the case for everybody, but that's the way it's been. That's the way it was for me. And then one day, I met a beautiful woman. And you guys are going to hear me mention her a few times, and she's going to blush every time I tell it. So I met Becky, and I'd been doing this job for about 18 months at that time. And she knew. She's like, I can just tell you're not happy. You're going to work. You're getting told what you need to do. You're getting told where you need to go, how long you need to do it. And right from day one, she says, honey, you can do so much better than this. You deserve better than this. You need the freedom. And of course, because I'm a dumb man, we don't always listen to our wives right away, and we're a little thick in the head. Right, Ken? Yeah. So I really didn't listen for a long time, until I got to the point where I was so burnt out that I was like, what in the hell are we going to do? So I thought, I need a change. So we started looking. We got on the job bank. And of course, I didn't even know that I was miserable. I didn't know that I didn't have freedom at that time, right? Because at that time, I was kind of like, you know, the caged lion that was born in captivity. All they ever know is, hey, I get out, I get my feed. You know, if the zookeeper shows up and pets me, I'm happy. And I got my 100-foot by 100-foot square cage, and that's all I need. And then one day the zookeeper comes in, he's all smiles, and he says, hey, I'm going to take you for a drive. And they go out and they have this big enclosed pasture where they can run and have fun for as long as they want. And they finally feel freedom for the first minute. And they do it for 3 or 4 hours. And then the zookeeper says, okay, buddy, it's time. Throws you back in the truck, and then you go back to the cage. And what are you at that point? Before, he was happy because he didn't know any different, right? But now, this lion gets that first little bit of taste of freedom. And he's like, oh, now I'm miserable. You know I can do better, but now they threw me back in the cage. So we decided we were going to do more. And so I thought, I need a change. So what did I do? I got a job doing the exact same thing I was already doing, just for a little more money. So that I was happy for about 10 minutes, and that turned into being miserable. We sold everything we had except what would fit in a Dodge Grand Caravan mid-2000s, you know what those were like, and took a job in Saskatchewan. For people who don't know Canadian geography, we went from basically from Maine to North Dakota. It was a long trip. Went out there, sight unseen, got an apartment. We moved from a house to a little tiny apartment, left our kids behind with the in-laws until we could afford to bring them out. They came out, they slept on an inflatable couch, and guess what? I was still miserable. 6 months in, we knew we'd screwed up. This was horrible. So you know what we did? We tucked tail. We went back to where we knew. We went back across the country. The problem was we'd sold everything we had, didn't have a lot of money to our name. All we really did was dig a bigger hole. So I panicked and I thought, okay, what can I do? I need to do something. So do you think I started my own business? Anybody? Spoiler alert, I went back to selling building supplies for the 3rd time because that's all I knew. I was like the caged lion that's like, I kind of like freedom, but shit, now I'm not going to do it, right? So I went back. Right away, I was miserable. My blood pressure went through the roof. I felt like I was walking on a boat all the time, you know, because my blood pressure was so high. If I'd have stayed there, I'm sure I'd be dead. It was awful. So eventually, of course, Becky says, you need to do something, honey, anything. And I promise, I'll tell you about starting my business, but I got to tell you about how thick in the head I was for a long time. I quit. I started lobster fishing, which was incredible. I loved it. You go out on the water, you have a great day. It's free. You're still working for somebody else. But I finally discovered I loved working outdoors. So Becky's like, well, why don't you do something? And of course, we dug ourselves a huge hole going, you know, out west and back. So I got an invitation. My in-law said, hey, you want to come out, sleep on our couch in our mobile home and work in the oil patch? Because this was 2013 when oil was booming. It was, you know, I hopped on a plane. I literally took the last, I can't remember how much money, if I try to tell you, I'll be lying, but whatever little bit of money we had left, we spent on that plane ticket. And I left Becky behind in the 130-year-old house with 5 kids working part-time at the dollar store, trying to keep the power on, while I went out there looking for a job. And I found a job right away. It took me 5 months. We started getting our feet under us, and we were doing really, really well, starting to make money. She came out. She was happy. We finally paid off a lot of our old debt, things we were doing, and we said, you know what? We're going to take a trip. We're going to go to Las Vegas. The day that Becky's vacation started was the day that the worldwide price of oil crashed. And they called her in on the first day of her vacation and said, I'm sorry, your services are no longer needed. So, as you can imagine, that vacation, we did the best we could, but it wasn't the funnest vacation. 3 months later, my company dissolved that I worked for, and we were back to square one. But I finally said, that's it. I've been kicked in the you-know-where enough times. I'm done with it. So I started my own business. Hung my shingle and I said, I'm going to run a handyman business. And I lived happily ever after. Except I didn't, because for the next year while I was living off my severance and building my business, I was doing what I could, but I wasn't charging enough, I wasn't finding enough customers, and I wasn't building enough of a business. I started out of, I always say abject poverty is a great motivator, and that's absolutely the case with this. I tried. But guess what? You guys are gonna sense a pattern here. I panicked again because I wasn't making enough money. Does anybody want to guess what I did? Not just sales. I went back to selling building supplies for a fourth miserable time because I'm too damn stubborn to try anything else. But you know what I did different this time? I kept my side hustle running. I had what was called, well, I didn't even have a name for it yet, but it eventually turned into all seasons maintenance. And what I did was, I said, I'm going to go there and I'm going to work, and I know I'm going to be fucking miserable. Sorry, guys. And we're going to go from there, and I'm going to build. And so I started making contacts, and I would talk, and people would come in and they're like, hey, we're looking for somebody to come and fix a toilet at a rental. You interested? Yeah, I'm interested. I took on a snow removal contract. So for you guys that don't know, that's that white stuff that falls from the sky. And we get a lot of it up there. And so
it white devil's dust.
White devil's, I call it white gold because it literally built my business. I built it from a $3 snow shovel, and it's, you know, a six-figure business now, which is great. So I talk to people, I make contacts. I take on snow removal contracts. I do them 6 o'clock in the morning before I go to work. I do them at 10 o'clock on my coffee break. I do them at lunch. I do them my afternoon coffee break. I do them after supper. Becky's online looking for jobs for me because she knows I don't want to do this anymore. She starts plugging away and she finds, somebody puts up, they're like, hey, I'm looking for somebody to clean out all this decorative rock and put new dirt down. You interested? Friggin' right. My daughter and I, we spent an entire hot afternoon digging it out by hand with a shovel, filtering it through with all it was 1x3 scrap lumber and steel cloth that I used, filtering it into a wheelbarrow I salvaged from the dump. We made it work. Then I had a lady, she said, do you want to haul down a shed? And I showed up, and it was like a 16 by 24 garage, and we literally, so you guys know what customer's definition of shed is, right? So you show up and like, yeah, we can do that, and I think I priced like $500. It should have, if I'd have did it today, it probably would have been like 4,000 or something, but anyway, we go in, and I had never done this before, and I go on YouTube and I'm watching videos, and oh, this is a good idea. So what we do is we knock all the walls out except the 4 posts. And then 2 of us put a rope on each post, and we pull the whole damn thing down, and we had 6 inches to spare from the neighbor's line in their fence, and we brought that right to the ground, and we did it. Everything I ever did in my business I had never done before, or I had but had never done before for pay. So I was learning as I went. In a year to the day that I started working at the hardware store, I finally walked away and I said, that's it. And that'll be next week, 5 years ago, that I launched All Seasons Maintenance, and it's still going today. And it supported our family. It's all we needed, and it's still all we need. But we've since kind of, I'll get into this down the road, but we've since kind of turned it into, you know, a self-sufficient enterprise that's allowed us to build a few other businesses. So it's kind of cool. And none of this is to brag. It's to know that we were absolutely working for the man, completely poor, completely broke, had nothing to show for it, and we eventually pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps and lived the American dream in Canada and built another business. So anyway, so I want to ask you, what is your definition of freedom? Does anybody want to share with me their definition of freedom? Somebody? Everybody said damn quiet. What's freedom to you, Nicole?
Freedom is the ability to choose my priorities every day.
Absolutely.
And I have it 100% of the time, even if I'm in jail. I just have a different list of priorities to choose from.
Absolutely. I love that. So we have you guys use Telegram and stuff. My workshop community, we interact, and I asked some of my guys on there. I had to write this part down for you, but it was the ability, one guy said the ability to make our own decisions and deal with the consequences and the rewards without interference from anyone else. And the other one, I think that was from Nate and Aaron. This one was, you guys here somewhere? There, way in the back. There's my buddy Nate. He says, to think for myself and my family, and I forgot to write the rest of it down, but basically make decisions for myself and my family without outside interference. And mine's even simpler. It's go where I want, do what I want, spend what I want without anyone else telling me, other than my wife, of course, what we can and can't do, right? And if you guys are, you know, the freedom-loving, either, you know, if you're a voluntarist or an anarchist, the big idea is, right, Don't hurt people and don't steal their shit. We've heard that 1,000 times. And that's what we want to be able to do. We just want to be able to make our own decisions or find our own version of freedom through entrepreneurship. And that's where it comes from. And the cool thing was, while we were on, it was actually kind of neat. I've been doing quite a bit of presentation, or quite a bit of preparation for this workshop while we've been on vacation. And it hit me while we were walking on the beach one day, and I said, you know, honey, we couldn't be on this vacation. I wouldn't be here at Lftn 2022 if it wasn't for the freedom that we found in entrepreneurship. And because I've built my schedule around being able to have some time independence and freedom and that kind of stuff. And so this is the type of thing that entrepreneurship affords people. Now, the thing about entrepreneurship, and I'm going to tell you this before we go too far into it, is full-time entrepreneurship probably isn't for everybody. And that's totally fine, because of course I'm supposed to be up here telling you that entrepreneurship is the only way and it's for everybody. But it might not be, and that's okay. But some form of entrepreneurship probably is. A side hustle, or 2 side hustles, or 3 side hustles, whatever it happens to be. Something like that might just either dig you out of debt or give you that freedom that you can say, you know what? I don't like what this boss is asking me to do. I don't like the fact that they're telling me I need to make certain medical choices. So I'm going to walk away because I have some income with a side hustle, and I can wait and find myself somewhere else. And that's kind of the freedom that comes along with it. Now here's the thing too, and sometimes I say this, you know, do as I say, not as I do. And I've told you guys, you've seen my path. It went across North America 3 times looking for independence and freedom and entrepreneurship. And what I love to say is, don't do as I do, but listen to what I teach and think about how it applies to your life. You don't have to do exactly what I did. You don't have to do anything of what I did. But maybe listening to my path and what I'm talking about is going to tell you guys, oh yeah, okay, I want to start a seamstress business, for instance. And that crazy Canuck who flew down here and built a business, if he can do it, I can probably do it too. So you don't have to follow my path, but what I want my path to do is to inspire you guys to do something great. Is that something we can live with? There we go. I'm not putting you to sleep yet, am I? All right, so here's the thing. How do I become an entrepreneur? Where do I start? What do I do? And again, I told you, I'm going to tell you a few stories about my wife, but it's because she's my partner in crime and she helps me. When we first met, we dated for 4 months before we got engaged. We got engaged on Christmas Eve at the Lighthouse. And from that day forward, I knew that I was a fiance. I was going to get married to the love of my life. But I didn't really know it. You know how something's new and it's exciting, but you're not really sure? And I remember the first time I told somebody, I'm like, hey, that's my fiance. And I was so proud. And that's the same way with entrepreneurship. I started a business, and for a long time, you're going to feel like an imposter. You're going to be like, I'm not an entrepreneur. Why am I an entrepreneur? Well, the first thing you got to do is choose to be an entrepreneur. That's simple. It's just like being a content creator. Everybody says, well, how do you start making YouTube videos, Tim? Well, this is going to be tough, and I know you're not going to understand, but I literally got up one morning and decided I was going to be a YouTuber. And it's the same way it works with entrepreneurship. I woke up one day and I said, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And then I started calling myself an entrepreneur. And for like 6 months afterwards, I didn't feel it, I didn't believe it. I was living it and I was saying it, but inside I didn't know it. So if you're waiting for someone to give you permission to be an entrepreneur, I give you permission. Now don't get me in trouble with your wife, because if anybody's significant other calls me in 3 months and says, I don't know what you told my husband at Lftn 2022, but he went home and quit his job. All I'm going to say is, I don't know who the hell you're talking about. I don't know what Lftn 2022 is. I don't know. So, but yes, so that's where you start. That's the big thing. You got to decide you want to be an entrepreneur. And this isn't hoity-toity, high and mighty, kind of like mind over matter. It's just literally at some point in your life, you got to decide, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to build a side hustle, whatever it happens to be. And then you're going to be like, okay, Tim said I can be an entrepreneur, and this is where I can go. And you're going to decide, you're like, all right, I want to do something. You know, I want to build, a farmer's kind of life, for instance, right? And you got to do it every day, don't you, Amy? Right? But when you first start, the first thing, yeah, okay, Tim said I'm an entrepreneur, great. And then that old brain's going to start going, right? And it's going to say, hey, you can't do this. What's wrong with you? You don't have, there's all these objections. Your brain's going to start jumping up. And I still get them. I'm up here talking to you guys. I create content on a regular basis. I've had a successful business for 5 years. My brain still jumps up and gives me objections. So that's okay. The first one's going to be, what are you talking about? You don't have time. We're all too damn busy, right? Nobody has any time. And you're right, you don't have time. But there's an old pastor friend that I knew years ago that always said, you make time for what's important to you. You say, yeah, well, that's just a pat answer. And it is, absolutely. But the way we find time to build our business, literally, you have to look at your day and you say, okay, where can I do this? And I decided I was making my business, the All Seasons Maintenance. It was a good thing, it was going. But I wanted to start building into content creation. So I decided, all right, I'm going to get up an hour early every day, and I'm going to work on it for that hour every morning. So I made an extra hour. Instead of sleeping, I got up and did it. You might say, okay, I'm going to take an hour in the morning, and then I'm going to take an hour after the kids go to bed at night. And I'm going to do that 5 days a week. And that is going to give me 10 hours a week. And what could you build? What incredible thing could you build with 10 hours a week from that simple, right? For me, I wanted to last summer, I really wanted to kickstart my YouTube channel and do things. And I said, how am I going to find this extra time? Now, you guys want to take a look? I got the Toronto Blue Jays on my arm. I am a baseball fan. Does anybody know how long the average time of a baseball game is today? It's too damn long. What's that?
3 or 4 hours.
3 hours, right? So you got a 3-hour ball game, and I watched pretty damn close to all 162 games a year. So that's like, rough estimate, 500 hours in a summer that I was sitting on my ass watching baseball. And I decided, sorry Vlad, I love you. I'd love to see you hit home runs, but I got other things I want to do. And so we took that time, and you can ask Becky, for years, it was every night in the summer. And last summer, I didn't watch a single baseball game. And that's not a brag, that's just simply I found the time where I wanted to go, right? And that's what we do. We have to turn around and we have to find our time where it is, because we all have the same 24 hours in a day. You know, Elon Musk has 24 hours in a day, but somehow he managed to find time to buy Twitter. It is what it is. We have to find our time, right? Then the next thing's going to be, this one's the great one, and this is another struggle for all of us. We don't have the money at all, right? And every one of us, it's like, well, maybe we don't have the money. And Ken and Amy and Letty, we're all on a group called the Fireside Freedom, and we did an episode on entrepreneurship a while ago. And we asked, what are your questions? And somebody said, and I feel so bad for this poor person because I've used this example so many times and I'm not ragging on them. It's just a perfect example. And they said, I've got so many ideas, but they all cost too damn much money. And to me, I heard excuses. And I'm not trying to be difficult, but that's what I heard. I heard, I really don't want to do it. And this is what I found. This is the reason I don't want to do it. So what I said was, look at all of your entrepreneurial ventures, whatever it happens to be. If you've got 1,000 of them, pick the one that's going to cost you the absolute least to build a business with. And start with that. Now, if that still costs you too much money, here's what you do. Start yourself some sort of service-based business. It might be something that you hate. It could be. I don't know. I don't want you to start something you hate, but it could be. So it could be as simple as going out with a pooper scooper and picking up the neighbor's dog poop. And what you're going to do is you're going to do that until you've raised yourself enough money. Because remember, this is a side hustle. This is above and beyond whatever your extra income is. You're going to save that money up, and then you're going to launch whatever one of those ideas that you had that were too expensive but you're passionate about. You're going to turn it around and you're going to do that. And none of this is simple, right? It's easy, but, it's simple, but it's not easy. I tell you these little steps, it's like, okay, there's not a lot involved in making these steps. But damn it, it's hard, right? You got to get up and do it. And we'll talk about that a bit. It's okay. And then it's the skills, right? From there, it's like, well, I'm not skillful. What can I do? And I kind of talked about that already, but there's literally hundreds of business ideas that require no skills whatsoever. None. Like I said, dog poop's one. My daughter, Charlotte, she's 11 years old. She made $500 last month babysitting because she looked at her local market and she said, people started asking, hey, can you babysit? Sure. And I mean, what kind of skill? As long as the kid doesn't end up dead, you're doing well, right? So, right? If you love animals, start walking animals. Go out and, you can even, we don't have as much as you guys do up there, but services like Rover or things like that, you can do those kind of things too, but then you're still beholden to somebody else. So, find a service that requires no skill and start with that. And then remember, we said, for instance, this mythical 10 hours that we found every week. You're not going to be run off your feet, busy working for those 10 hours when you first start. Because we all know, when we first start roasting coffee, we don't have a lot of customers, do we, Nicole? And that's what happens. When I first started doing handyman, I was spending more time looking for customers than I was working for customers. So if you've got 10 hours a week, well, 5 hours might be for work. The other 5, turn it into YouTube University time. Sit down and start building those skills that you see, oh, you know what, if I built this little skill here, I could turn that into something great. One of those was window cleaning. I had a customer call me ages ago and they said, hey, did you clean windows? And my stupid ass said, sure I do, even though I hadn't done it in years and didn't know what I was doing. I'm like, okay, so I'll book you out for a couple of weeks and I'll come by and do your windows. So for the next 2 weeks, I watched videos on YouTube on how to clean windows. I ordered what I needed to clean windows off of Amazon, and I had it all ready. And then I went out front and practiced, and the neighbors must have thought I was an absolute idiot because I probably watched. I was out there washing that big picture window probably 70 times until I was just good enough that the customer wouldn't get pissed off and not pay me. So, I built, and then as I went on, I was able to build those skills up and keep going. And that's where it comes from. So you're going to start, and I'm going to say, okay, you guys can do it. You know that. And then from there, okay, yes, you're an entrepreneur. You have my permission. No problem. And then right as soon as you start, you're going to get all the objections. I got no time. I got no money. I got no skills. Hopefully, to start with, at least that will get you a little bit out of the way. And then build yourself a support system. And now, again, you ever remember when you see somebody on TV and they're talking about the business they built, and you always find these must be nice people. They're like, oh, well, he had it easy because, well, this fell in his lap. Or, when my YouTube channel first started taking off, I had a couple of people say, wow, that just blew up overnight. And you're like, really? Really? Right? Yeah, you know how many hours and days and weeks of making content or, looking for customers and there's nobody there? That's when you need a good support system. And this is the whole thing. Like, somebody's like, well, I don't have a wife or I don't have a husband. Well, you don't have to have a wife or a husband to have a support system. A support system is what you make it. So if you have parents, start getting excited and telling them about your business idea. Do you have a brother or a sister or friends? Talk to them about it. But the big one is surround yourself with other entrepreneurs. Find other people who are like, I really want to do this, but I've never done it before. Well, let's learn together. Or even better, find a local chamber of commerce or business owner groups and start chatting with them. Rub shoulders with them, because the people you hang out with are the type of people you're going to become. And when you hang out with successful people or people who are driven and want to get shit done, you're going to want to get shit done too. And worst case scenario, if you live in northern Alaska in the woods and it's just you and your dog, but you have an internet connection, work on an online community. Because I can promise you right now, I would not be standing here building my business if it wasn't for number one, my wife, and number two, the TSP and the Lftn communities, with Nicole kicking me in the ass verbally, even before she even knew who I was. I remember one time, I was leaning over a toilet, trying to pull it up off the floor, and if you guys have ever changed a toilet out and scraping that nasty ass wax that looks like something that a kid left behind after they had an accident, it's miserable. And I remember I had my earbuds in and I was listening to Nicole talk about building something special. And that was before I ever even appeared on Lftn way back, was it 2000? I think, yeah, 2000, yeah, it doesn't seem that long ago, but it was about 2.5 years ago in February was when I officially launched my online thing. So, all that to be said, build yourself a support system. Find somebody that's going to be your cheerleader and give you a kick in the ass. And if there's no one around, then listen to somebody that's going to kick you in the ass. They may never know what they do for you, but that is going to be your support system. And it's true. And I love seeing people succeed. Kerry Brown, you are the man, and I am proud of you because he has built himself something special, and I am. And Ken, you're the same way. I'll forget 1,000 people, but I live to see other people succeed. So when you are succeeding, that just makes me joyful. It makes me happy. Share with me. I love to hear it. It's great. Now, here's the thing. As you get going, you got to look at your market, find out what you need, find out what is needed. I started my handyman business simply because everybody told me, hey Tim, you know what we need? Somebody to do small jobs in our area. Because there's nobody that does. We have 2 contractors, they do all the big jobs, they don't want to touch the small stuff. To them, a small job is still like $10,000. I don't do that kind of work, but they just have no interest in doing small jobs. So I filled a niche. I was able to do it. Then, look at your skills, look at your interests. Go from there and say, okay, now, there's a market for these type of skills, these type of, offerings. What do I do that I like? What am I passionate about? Am I one of the crazy people that likes cleaning windows? Well, if I am, I'm telling you, you can make a lot of money. In my area, you can make $100 an hour cleaning windows, and that's without even trying. And I live in a town of 1,500 people. Now, what could you do with $100 an hour? That beats almost every other job out there that you can get right now, right? And that's literally cleaning windows while I listen to other people talk to me about why I should be cleaning windows, because that's what you do, right? And then, so you look at your market, look at your skills, the things you're passionate about, and then this is my favorite part because I just like to hang out in my workshop, but look at the stuff you have on hand, okay? So when I first started building my business, I built it on what I call kind of zero jobs, things that didn't cost me anything. So walk into your workshop, walk into your craft room, walk into your downstairs basement area, whatever it is, wherever you store your stuff, and just do a 360 and look around and say, what do I have? What do I have that can make me money? And I don't mean sell things. I mean like, okay, I go out there, I got a 20-foot rickety old aluminum ladder. I'm gonna take that out and I'm gonna start climbing roofs and cleaning what us weird Canadians call eaves troughs and the rest of the civilized world calls gutters. So you're gonna get up and you're gonna do that because nobody else likes to do it. And for me, I found out that I could make about $100 in 45 minutes to an hour cleaning somebody's set of gutters. And it's easy work. So, and like my mom, for instance, she went into her craft room and she has a serger and a sewing machine. And people were always telling her, hey, you know what we need in this town? We need another seamstress. Because the seamstress that's in town is old and cranky and nobody likes to deal with her. Anybody ever know one like that? Plus, she didn't want to take on any more customers, so that was okay. So she started with that. She said, I got a sewing machine. I'm going to do alterations. And eventually, one of her customers said, have you ever done embroidery? She's like, I don't even know really what that is per se, but he's like, I'll tell you what, if you're willing to do embroidery, I will buy you an embroidery machine if you do the work for me for so long and pay it off. She did it that way, and for a lot of years, she ran a seamstress and embroidery business simply based on her passions, the stuff she had on hand, and people in the market telling her, hey, this needs to be done. And you got to listen, right? I always call it, too, the spaghetti method. You take a big handful of spaghetti, throw it at the wall, and see what sticks. I tried all kinds of stuff that didn't work. We tried meal delivery services. Nobody wanted meal deliveries. We tried laundry for the elderly. Didn't work. We tried grocery delivery service. Didn't work. I tried car detailing. Didn't work. I did a flash sale on lawn mowing, and I said, I'll mow any lawn in town for $30. I got one customer who canceled on me the day before I was supposed to go do it. I tried house sitting. I put an ad out on, we have Kijiji in Canada, and I put one on Facebook. Didn't even get a single bite. The things that I did more of. So one time somebody called me and said, hey, do you do property management? And I'm like, yes, I do. I was like, I think I know what that is. So anyway, I learned as I went, and I started taking on bank repossession houses, and that's been very lucrative for us. And then I took on looking after rentals, and now we have over 40 individual rental units that makes up, through 4 or 5 different customers, a significant portion, almost a majority of our income, simply because I said, yeah, I do that, even though I didn't really know what it was at the time, And then, okay, we've got yourself to the point where you know what business you're going to build, what you're going to do, how you're going to get there. And then eventually, you're like, this excitement, it kind of wears off. You get a little tired of doing what you're doing, and you're like, I just don't want to do it today. So here's the next thing, and I told you this stuff, it's simple, but it's not easy. You got to develop your superpower. And this is something I'm pretty damn good at now, but I can promise you I wasn't at one time. And this is doing the right thing every single day, no matter how miserable you feel. It's, okay, I'm going to make content, and I just hit my 500th video on YouTube, and I've been making content for just over 2 years. Because every single, oh, no, thank you, but it's all right, yeah. Simply because, all right, there you go. And that's because I built the superpower of doing what needs to be done, and I get it done all the time. And if there's a day I know I can't get it done, I make sure it's done the day before so that it's ready for the day. I've got podcasts coming out, new content while I'm away, because I knew that I was going to be lazy and sit on my ass. I knew I couldn't do it for the whole time, but I wanted to make sure shit still came out, right? So you got to develop that superpower. So whatever it is you figure out that you need to do to build that business, you got to do it every single day. If you've got that hour every morning, that hour every night, it's easy, but it can be difficult too. You just got to keep going with it. So develop your superpower. Now that part's not too bad. That'll get you over, you know, those first few weeks, first few months in business. And then there's going to come what I like to call my terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. And I've had more than two, but I'm going to tell you about two of mine. I'm going to tell you about one that we had in the daycare. And this is the day that you decide I'm done being an entrepreneur. Because all that bullshit that Tim spewed at Lftn, he's full of crap, because this is miserable. So the first one, when I was first starting, I took on a plumbing job. And it was way more than I should have, and I priced it way too low, even though I did what I tell people, and I priced it higher than I thought I should so I wouldn't get it. And the guy's like, yeah, I'll take you. So I'm crawling around underneath of a mobile home. That's something I've specialized. Even my big old butt can get in under mobile homes, as nobody else wants to do it. And I took on this job of renovating a bathroom. So when I cut into what I thought was a drain line, and it ended up being the vent pipe that went all the way to the roof, and the whole thing came down like that, I knew I was way in over my head. I had to spend more on tools to even think about getting the job done. And when I put everything back together, and the guy went to flush his toilet and nothing in the house would drain, I felt like a failure. And I went home and I sat on the couch, and Becky should tell you, I was scared shitless. I was just anxious beyond being anxious. And I told her, I said, I'm giving up. She said, no, you're not. You'll figure it out. So I sat there for 15 minutes and I wallowed in self-pity. And then I decided, okay, I need to keep doing this because I'm doing something special and I love it. I need to fix it. I need to make it right. I give the guy his money back. I got him in touch with a plumber that was able to fix the issues I caused. And there was no hard feelings, but at the moment, I thought for sure I'd screwed up big time and I was done. And then the next one was winter of 2020. We built our snow business and it was a lot of fun. And I had done it with a backpack blower and a snow shovel for a lot of years, and a quad with a plow on the front. But what I didn't have was a snow blower for getting, big piles in small areas. And I figured I'd be okay. And then we got this snowfall. It was about 18 inches of the hardest snow you'll ever see. It was packed harder than the sand on the beach in Daytona. It was just like, you couldn't move it. And I went out and I said to Becky, I said, it's still snowing and we can't even manage to get this one property done and we have 25 properties. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I went, and that was just the first. And then the plow on my quad, it broke. The battery died in a truck. The four-wheel drive went in my backup truck. And we were storm stayed, so even if I wanted to buy a snowblower, I couldn't leave town to go get one. I was hooped. And I told her, I said, I'm done. Just walking away. We're going to close it up. I'm sure we'll get sued or something, but I'm done. And she's there listening to me. Yes, dear, playing on her phone. I'm like, what the hell is she doing? She's not even listening to me. 10 minutes later, she says, hon, hop in the truck, go across town, go pick up your snowblower. I said, what? She found a man in a snowstorm that had a brand new snowblower that he'd been sitting on for 4 years, that had never been used, that he was willing to sell me for cash at a slight markup considering the situation. And I went over, got the snowblower, and within a half an hour I was out blowing snow, and I got by that terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. But you're gonna have them. And so, once you get successful, you start building other businesses, right? This is what we did. So we decided we're gonna build Busy Bees Daycare. So we took the money from All Seasons Maintenance over a year. How am I doing? We good?
You got 8 minutes until you're
45 is done?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so we built Busy Bees Daycare, and we knew we had to support it for a year, basically off of the All Seasons Maintenance. Anyway, we got to the point where we're like, you know what? We're making a little bit of money, but we're not making the money we want. And the women were disappointed, and so it's Becky and her sister and two of us, and so we got in there and we said, okay, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna shut it down? And we said, okay, we just gotta sit down. We were all, again, worked up because we just didn't have enough kids coming yet, right? We said, but we're making money. We built the business to the level where it's at least breaking even, and we know we're not an absolute failure. So we said, we'll give it until the new year, and we'll see where things go. But the one thing we're not doing is we're not quitting right now when we're all sad or anxious or worked up because we feel like we're not successful. Because that's when it jumps in on you and says, you're done. So we had that pizza party where we had our little pity party and we cried and we got it all out of our system. And now, today, their daycare is full at capacity and it makes more money in a month than my all seasons maintenance does. Simply because we had a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. But we were willing to let that pass, because never make decisions when you're anxious or worked up or having a shitty day, because you're only going to make a shitty situation worse. That's where we go. So from there, this is what you guys all came to talk about, to hear me talk about, is freedom. And this is the best part of building your own business, is when you get going in all the different aspects of freedom that you're going to find with entrepreneurship. And the first one is freedom of choice. And I love this one because anybody work for somebody? And of course, you know how they always say the customer's always right? Ken knows. I want to tell you guys a secret. When you're your own boss, the customer doesn't have to be right if you don't want them to be. Doesn't mean you get to be an asshole about it, but if you have an 80-year-old customer, this might be or might not be a true story, that you paint their fence and do an incredible job on, but he thought you were too quick doing it and didn't want to pay you the full price, you can tell him, I'm sorry, sir, but you're no longer my customer. That's the freedom of not having to deal with absolute you-know-whats. And you have the freedom of choice, the freedom of, this has been big. This was something I wouldn't even have thought of 2 years ago. But you have the freedom of medical choice. I got to choose whether I wanted to go and pick up my supplies at stores that made me wear a mask or didn't make me wear a mask. I got to make my own personal choice about taking the jab or not. Not because somebody said you're going to be fired, because it was a personal medical decision for me, because I was my own boss. And I didn't even see that coming. When we started our business, I had no friggin' clue that this was going to be a thing. But it gave me freedom of choice. How awesome is that? I mean, you literally, right? Freedom of security. So here's the thing. Everybody says, well, I'm scared to death of leaving my job because I'm going to lose my job security. And I'm like, you really think you have job security? Because if you went home, if your boss went home on the weekend and his wife pissed him off, he can come to work tomorrow and fire you simply because he's in a bad mood. I mean, where's the security in that, right? Yeah, you got a paycheck coming in every 2 weeks, but you're at the whims of the economy, the CEO who says, hey, we need to cut back 10% of the workforce. And, you know, Bill over there, he's 50. He's been here for a while. He makes more than the average, so see you later. Doesn't matter how hard you work, you've lost. So where does freedom of security come in with entrepreneurship? Well, you get to figure out how much you want to work. So the more you work, the more money you're going to bring in within reason. Also, you can choose to diversify. So one of the big things I saw in the oil patch in Alberta was everybody had their own business, but every one of them was dependent on a single customer. So this guy here was friends with Bill, and Bill said, I'm going to give you all of the well servicing for this one oil company. And when that oil company went belly up, their business went with it. So what I've tried to do is build up a good wide variety of jobs and customer base so that you have that security. So right now, like I said, I've got over 40 properties that I look after, and that's split up amongst 3 big property owners and then some smaller ones. So if I lose one of those, it's about 25% of my customer load, not my entire job. That's where the security comes in, because you get to build your own security into your own business. Now, who doesn't like money? I kind of like money. This one's the freedom of finance, and I love this one too, because again, you say, this is where I was for years working at Home Hardware. I was miserable, and I would work all year, work myself 55 to 60 hours a week on salary, not a bit of overtime. Becky knew I was miserable, and every year we'd have our yearly review, and I'd beg and plead, and I'd say, oh, please, sir, can I have some more? And I might get 15 cents an hour, and that's not a lie. That's what I'd get extra a year. But you know what? If I want to make more money, I take on more jobs. I put my price up as long as the market will dictate it, because it's funny what people will pay. And actually, the more you charge, the better customers you get and the less complaints you get. Right, Ken? Yeah, Ken's shaking his head. Amen, brother. I know about that. And that's the truth. The more you want to make, the more you work. And you work your price up because you're worth more than you probably think you're worth. And from there, and this is my absolute favorite one, and it is freedom of schedule. And I didn't realize how much I would friggin' love this. This is my favorite part because I get to get up and I get to work when I want to work. Now, I'm not saying that I can choose not to go do a job for somebody, but I get to develop my own schedule and my own lifestyle simply on the idea that, okay, all last summer, I basically worked from about 7 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon, and I got to do whatever the hell I wanted the rest of the day. I have a lot of jobs now where the contracts are property management, so I just need to be around. I need to be there to take a call. I need to have a flexible schedule, but you know what I get to do in the meantime? I get to build a solar system for my garage. I get to build my preps. I get to build a prepper pantry in the basement. I get to do maintenance for Becky's Busy Bees daycare. And then I get to invest in other little side hustles. So of course I built my Toolman Tim's workshop because again, I did those little things over and over. And then we realized we really like custom roast coffee, but all my mean American friends don't want to ship to Canada because it costs a lot and customs might decide they don't want to send it to us. So we decided to partner with another coffee company and launch the Canadian Coffee Company. So we're going to be selling custom coffee up in Canada as well because we didn't have enough to do and we wanted to get into something else. But that is where the freedom of schedule comes in, and that's what I love about being my own boss is I get to get up in the morning. I probably know what I'm going to do the next day, but it gives me all that freedom to just decide, okay, this is how I'm going to build my life. This is what I'm going to do with my life. And this is where I'm going to have fun. And I'm going to do a whole bunch of things because I can. And we're going to spend 2 weeks traveling the country in the middle of the year because we've built our schedule so that we can do that. And if you'd have seen us 10 years ago when we were drowning in debt, living in a 130-year-old house that we figured we were going to lose to the bank and our power wasn't going to stay on, I never would have seen it. And it was all because, like I said, abject poverty is a huge motivator. So, I hope that inspires you just a little bit. Now, while I was talking, I can guarantee you there's something in there who, not everybody, but there's some people who are going to be motivated and be like, I know what I'm going to start when I get home, and this is what I want to do. So whatever it is that's in your brain, what I want you to think about for just a minute, go like this and say, okay, what is the first step that I need to do to build whatever that business is? And lock that in up here, okay? Everybody got it? Whoever's doing it, okay. And then I want you to do the second step. I want you to lock that one in too. Okay, because we've all heard people smarter than us say that it takes 2 steps to get in front of the finish line, or in front of the starting line, right? So when you've taken those first 2 steps, you know, I've completely started, okay? And then from there, what do we got, 2.5 days left of the workshop? I want you guys, whoever's decided they want to build a business, I want you to come and find me. I will make time for you, I promise. I might like to talk, I might like the sound of my own voice, but I'm a good listener too. So come and find me and say, Tim, this is what I'm going to build. Because, and if you followed me on social for any length of time, you know I like to make my goals public. Which also means I'm going to make my failures public too, right? People ask me all the time, when's Mike Rowe going to be on your show? I'm like, I'm not sure yet, but he will be there. Might be 3-4 years. I set a goal at the beginning of this year to have 10,000 subscribers for the YouTube channel. Am I going to get there? I don't know. But I said it publicly and I'm doing everything I can to get there. So come and find me. Tell me what it is you want to do. Let me encourage you. And when you say it out loud, it becomes actually something that you're going to do. Now, remember, what I want to be for you guys while we're talking, I want to be sitting there, and when you guys have that terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day, and you're beat down and broke, I want you to think back to that crazy Canuck at Lftn, and what I want you to hear in your head is, you can do it. I want to be your Rob Schneider, and I want you to hear, you can do it all night long. Thank you, guys. 15? We can do a few questions? 14, okay. So I've got 10 minutes for questions before I need to go get my nails done. So, all right, no. Just kidding. Anybody? Anybody got anything that you... Way in the back, sir.
Yeah, how do you make money on this YouTube?
How do I?
Yeah, you got any tips on...
Sure. Start. That's the first one. And the first thing I would say is know that probably for the first year, the only people who are going to watch it is your wife and your mother. And then they're going to stop watching too. So, yes, I actually, so like 3 months in, I had a buddy, he's like, you know what I do? He says, every time I go to work, I put your videos on the screen and I play them all day long for you. I'm like, you bugger, thank you. And I thought real people were watching, but anyway, no. But honestly, what it is when you start, figure out who you want to make those videos for and start making those videos for the audience that isn't even there yet. Because I called what I did a community when the only community was me, because I had to live it before it happened, right? And so now we have a real community. You know, we got a Telegram group with 100 people that we talk all the time, and we encourage each other and we build each other up. But honestly, be prepared for the slog, because it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't. Like, I guess I found success faster than some people, but I made content for months that nobody was watching. And then eventually a couple of people started watching. But what you're looking for is to do that step by step, like I said, the right thing every day, even though you don't want to. And you're going to do it like this, and your growth is going to look like this for a long time. It's going to flatline, but eventually, if you do it right, you're going to find that parabolic growth. And I'm not telling you the answers, I'm just telling you that that's where you got to start. And not everybody will find it, but if you stick with it and make for your ideal, whoever it happens to be, and what I found out is the person to make content for is probably yourself, because that's what you know the best. So if you know your ideal customer, your ideal viewer, just start making content and make it with no understanding that you're ever going to make any money at it, but eventually you're going to find success. But you got to do that. That flat line is boring, long, and hard. That was like me getting up every day and going and doing snow while I was working for the man. You just got to keep going while that growth is flat, and eventually you'll start seeing the curve. It's just how it works, and it's simple, but it ain't easy, right? Does that help a little? It's a start. You can follow up with me 100 times if you got. Yeah, I will give you, as long as I see that if I give somebody advice, they at least listen to me. I'll keep giving you advice. I love to talk. So, yes.
So after you've said yes to everything, so that you can just build something, how do you decide when you're too busy, or how do you decide when to say no to something?
Repeat that question into the mic.
Oh, okay. So you wanna know, once you've said yes and you've built something, when you get to the point where you're busy enough, how do you start saying no, or how do you choose right? And
what's your criteria for deciding this isn't worth my time anymore,
yes,
or this person is?
So at first, I would say, of course, you say yes to everything, right? That's the big one. And and I'm really bad at saying no, so that has always been a struggle for me. I've taken on too many jobs at times. I've taken on too many jobs at one time, and a lot of times I will say yes simply because I'm like, you know, the first time I ever learned to say no, I'll tell you this story, was a buddy of mine who said, and this is going to sound really crass and really mean, but he said, would you mind carrying my dad at a funeral? And I had too much on the go, and I was very proud of myself for saying no, and that's a real dick thing, but it wasn't a dick thing, right? Because I couldn't, but I wanted to, and I remember that was one of the first times I said no. But anyway, I digress. But
How did you tell them no? How did you explain that?
I said it, I did, and you feel like an asshole?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it gets easier. I will promise you this, property management has helped thicken my skin a lot. Because you deal with a lot of people who make a lot of promises who don't keep a lot of promises. So eventually you've got to realize it's business, and you are the important one, right? You need to know that if I say yes to this, I'm going to be friggin' miserable. But that's just, you know, how do you actually decide, right? For me, I start looking at what's making me the most money for the least amount of work. And I know, like, because that's what I want. I want to be able to bring in the most amount of money. So things like I said, window wash. You know, if I told somebody that I charge $100 an hour to wash windows, they'll never hire me. But if I tell you I charge $5 a window, you know what's great about that? They don't care how long it takes me, because they know how many windows they have. They know how much they're gonna pay me, and I know that I can do 20 windows in an hour and make $100 an hour, and nobody's ugly. They're happy about it when I'm done. So I look at the things that make us the most money for the least amount of work. I look at the things that bring me the most joy at this point too, because eventually you'll get to the point where you get to choose to do things you want to do. Because if we're building all this freedom for a bunch of shit that we hate to do, you might as well keep working for somebody else. So find the things you love to do that get you excited, that make you smile when you talk about it, or at least that you don't absolutely hate when you first start out, and try to do more of that too, right? And like I said, it's a spaghetti method. So at first you're going to take on a lot of shit you don't love, probably some stuff you really hate too. But as you go, it really is a bit of a natural process. You start finding, okay, this is what I really like to do. And eventually you will get to a point where you can pick and choose. But as far as the no thing goes, you will find a point where you're like, if I keep saying yes, I can't do anything for anybody, and I'm gonna be no good, and this isn't why I did this. And I felt really guilty for about a year doing that, because I was like, man, I just wanna keep building. But then I'm like, this isn't what I wanted to build. I wanna be able to build a bunch of things, because I have a problem, I get bored with things, so I start one thing, and I love it, and I get going, and then I'm like, I need the stimulus of starting something new. So if I kept having my day completely full with absolutely all handyman stuff, eventually I'd get burnt out, right? So let your gut tell you, and it's never perfect, and there's still times you feel bad for saying no, but it will get easier. But just find the things you love and find the things that make you the most money for the least amount of work, and build around those and practice saying no. You know, I remember when I was in college, we went on this missions trip, and the professor wanted to take pictures of us, and so everywhere we went, and that was before smartphones, right? And I had one of them smiles that was like, you know, right? So you know what I did, and it's really goofy, but I went into the bathroom for like 2 hours and I practiced smiling until I was like, okay, I can live with that, right? And so that's the same thing you gotta do with practicing to say no. Go in the mirror and holler at yourself, be like, nah, I don't think so, or nah, it's not worth my time. Or, you know, you'll find a nice, polite way to say it. I'm not like, no, but you know, you have to get comfortable with saying no, or you're never gonna be successful. Or you might kill yourself with your own success. Anybody else?
Or the best reply I heard last night, I don't do charity.
Right. That's I love that. Because it's like passive aggressive but polite at the same time.
I don't do charity, sorry. Thank
Yeah, I'm sorry. We just don't have time to do that. You know, I've already expended my charitable hours and donations this year. I'm sorry I can't help you this time, right? You know, so yeah. Anybody else? Oh, back. Oh, I'll come. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, with all the things you've done, like snowplow, daycare, et cetera, do you kind of create a template so like your next business, even if it's completely different, you have a building blocks already?
Yeah, so for people who can't, for people who can't hear, basically want to know with all the different businesses we've done, do I have a template going forward at this point so that you eliminate some of the upfront headaches and hassles? So that was something I was going to touch on, but I was kind of running out of time, so I thought I would, thank you for asking, because the first business is the hardest. John Pugliano will talk about that, I'm sure he knows, but the first one is absolutely the hardest because everything's new, right? You're learning, I'm not just learning how to clean windows, I'm also learning how to find customers, and I'm also learning how to look at a market, and I'm also looking at how to make sure I charge enough. But once you get that first one, Becky and I said that, you know, the first one's the hard one. Once you get that first one under your belt, you've made a lot of the mistakes. It's like you now have the wisdom that you need. And I wouldn't say I put it on paper, but we learned a lot of the hard lessons that we were able to skip by when we started Busy Bees Daycare. Because we already knew, okay, we know how to look at a market at this point and realize there is a need for that. Whereas before, we were doing it blind. We're like, yeah, I kind of think there is, but I don't really know, right? And so that, if that helps a little, it's more of a life experience thing that once you get that first business under your belt, then you realize, okay, I realize where did I make that mistake last time, and I'm not going to do it this time. And that's helped us a lot. And it also builds confidence, because with this coffee business, I remember looking at Becky and I said, we're going to be successful with this one. And I don't know if I ever said that with any of the other ones, because I guess you get a little cocky and you don't want to, but you need some confidence, because I was not necessarily a confident dude when I first started. And you know, you're going to get the wind knocked out of you a few times, but once you get those businesses going and you learn from those mistakes, then the next ones do get a little easier. Ken, was it you? No? Okay. Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah. How we doing, Nicole?
1 minute.
All right, well, thank you guys. Like I said, I guess if you want to know what I do, where I am, you can physically find me in Tennessee right at the moment, but toolmantim.co is my website. Honestly, I just love to meet each and every one of you. I'm always looking for awesome guests on the show, but I got the Workshop podcast. I have the YouTube channel where I review tools and just try to make other people successful. And plus I'm a prepper and rather passionate about that too. So thank you guys. Find me and tell me what you want to do and we'll chat. I love it. So thank you.
Thank you.